All right, what's up? It's Lila once again, moving right along to August 15th of 2018. You really need to stop smoking so much in the apartment. I just finished re-recording for like the sixth time, episode three, like I said, and this was the topic of that was like, yeah, this really got on my nerves. All right, you really need to stop smoking so much in the apartment. I'm tired of intermittently feeling like my head is inside an ashtray several times per day. I understand at night, but during the day, seriously, if you want to smoke, you should make yourself go downstairs to do it. Maybe you would smoke less in general, though I know that when you smoke outside, you have a tendency to smoke half of a cigarette and then throw it away. But when you smoke upstairs, you at least put it out and keep it to finish it. Smoking less would be better for your health, your wallet, and to be honest, I wouldn't have to scrub the walls and bleach the shower so often. I think it's a sick joke of the universe that smokers don't notice how obvious their habit is to people who don't smoke. Which is funny because I can smell right now, like I think somebody's walking by with a cigarette. I thought, cool it for a second. Maybe I'm hallucinating. I don't know. Maybe it was somebody driving by in a car. But I swear when I said that I could smell cigarette smoking, it was like somebody was going to be. Okay. Anyway. I think it's a sick joke of the universe that smokers don't notice how obvious their habit is to people who don't smoke. This is coming from someone who used to smoke and grew up in a house with a chain smoker. I never smoked that often, though. For most of my smoking life, it was just two cigarettes a day at night before bed, outside. I remember my mom always being upset at my dad for smoking in the house and how much he spent on cigarettes while complaining about the cost of other things. I think I mentioned this already in one of either it's in the anecdote. This has come up as well. But for a bit, he would actually go outside to do it. Then they moved into a different house, and now my dad has his own den where he can smoke his brains out without it bothering the rest of the house. In this apartment, though, there really isn't anywhere for the smoke to go. When you smoke in the bathroom, if there's a breeze, it goes out of the bathroom window but blows right back into the main room window, right through the window I'm next to at night. If there's no breeze, the smoke wafts into the main room into the corner where I work most of the day. You have literally woken me up at 1 a.m. choking on smoke coming through the window. It's beyond frustrating, and I can't say anything about it because of the circumstances. I've mentioned already that it is super frustrating when you come upstairs from being outside and immediately smoke in the bathroom. Like, seriously, what the actual fuck? I just went off on my vent. I swear to God. This is how you know I don't remember what I wrote and when, because otherwise I would have just shut the fuck up at the end of the last chapter. Oh, and if you're reading this and you think you can get away with smoking just one measly cigarette in a hotel room, you're dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. Marijuana is okay though, but leave the joint behind for the housekeeper. She'll make that shit go away and keep her mouth shut. That is so fast. Like cigarette smoke is fucking insidious. You can do things about some weed or whatever, right? Whatnot. But cigarette smoke is like the stench you can't wash off. I saw just yesterday on X too, either it's X or Facebook, but somebody had posted asking this about like is cigarette smoke actually so easy to smell? Because she'd grown up, I think she's like that she grew up in a house full of smokers. And so she's so immune to it, but people are always telling her, like when she goes to school or whatever, that she reeks of cigarette smoke. And she's like, she can't smell it. So she's like, is it really that bad? And of course, like everybody in the replies to her was like, yes, and like all caps with exclamation points. Like it's literally crazy how smelly smokers are. um, but yeah, like I said, I have a similar experience to her where like you grow up in a house with a chain smoker and you reek, but you don't even know, and then you get away from it for a while, and it's just like you can smell it a mile away. Like I could be the only person on the block sitting at a bus stop bench, and I will smell cigarette smoke and then spy somebody literally like 50 yards away from me in front of a restaurant. It's that it's that bad. But anyway, all that being said, yesterday I asked you to pick up some pecani sauce for me from the grocery store and specified medium. You repeated it back to me, so I know that you heard me. I know that you understood. I trust that you know how medium is spelled. Now, I know that you don't like spicy food, so you are probably not familiar with the range of mild, medium, and hot. But seriously, this was just ludicrous. What is the most ludicrous about this type of occurrence is that I know when you will fuck something up, and it's often. And it's often because you don't just take what I say at face value. If I tell you I want medium picante sauce and you come back with mild, seriously, what the fuck? But this is exactly what you predictably did. So I mentioned, oh, I wanted medium, and you said that's the right one, isn't it? One, obviously not, or I wouldn't have said anything but thank you, you irritating fucking socially awkward can't talk right prick. Please get on board with how conversations work. How have you made it to this point in your life without people steering you in the direction of how to understand where other people are coming from? Or without being diagnosed with a disorder that would explain this disability? I should say, like, inability instead of disability. But I hope, like, people get, like, I'm not trying to come at neurodivergent people with this. My point is that at this point, you would think that people would have pointed this out to him, right? Now, I get, like, it's an unfamiliar item, right, and things like that. So it's like now when I'm reading back on this, I'm like, okay, but I get, like, I don't understand why he never understood to take me literally. Like I'm trying, like it's a grocery list, right? Like if I were making a recipe, like if I were baking an apple pie and I specified that I needed you to get green apples, Granny Smith apples, then you need to get Granny Smith apples. If I tell you to pick up a box of cereal, make it Frosted Flakes, and you come home with Cheerios, I'm going to ask you why you brought fucking Cheerios. It's not rocket science. Okay? Right? So like when I say medium pecanis, and they're all right next to each other on the shelf, like you can't tell me that you didn't notice that there's green, yellow, and red lids and that they're different things. Right? It's like at some point, like nobody's fucking with you, dude. People are telling you exactly what they want, and then you go and you manage to fuck it up because you don't understand that people are specifically saying what they're saying. I don't even know if this will ever come up either, but there was one point in time. So he likes his cheeseburgers like just ketchup, right? Even when he orders them from a restaurant. But you still understand that like pickles, onions, mustard, and stuff exist, right? Right. Okay. So this man, one day I wanted sliced pickles, like hamburger chip pickles, like that you would put on a hamburger. And I'm thinking to myself, if you know through your life experience that you want the pickles not on your hamburger, then you know what hamburger pickles are, right? Like you would think, like, but I already know, and this is on another tangent, but just saying, like, not like talking shit or anything, but it's like when I used to work at McDonald's, like the number of parents that just got plain cheeseburgers for their kids, I always wondered if they'd ever even let the kids have the cheeseburger with anything on it to begin with because there were as many adults ordering like plain McDoubles as there ever were kids getting ordered plain cheeseburger Happy Meals. And I was just like, have these kids never even tried putting anything on their burger? Or did their parents just never let them have ketchup? I mean, what? I don't know what's going on there. Right? So, anyway, so I asked him to get a jar of pickles where it's just the sliced pickles. And he came home with like the pickle spears, right? Where like the plastic pickles where they just cut the whole pickles into quarters. And I was like, no, I was like, that's it's not what I want. I was like, it's okay, like don't worry about it because I can just either slice those up or just eat the pickles on the side. It's not that big of a deal. But he told me, he's like, they don't sell those. Right. I told him, I'm like, like when you go to McDonald's or wherever they put pickles on their hamburger and it's just like the round slice of a pickle. Right. And so then I'm starting to think of like, I don't know if this man even understands that whole pickles are round. Maybe like who knows? I don't know. But he tried telling me that they don't sell them. And I'm like, they absolutely sell these at the grocery store. And now it's making me think, have you seen that ad for some whatever that like payday like cash advance thing is or whatever, and the dad comes home and he doesn't have the diapers, but he's got like the cereal he wanted and all this, and he tries to tell his wife that he couldn't find the diapers. And she's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? You couldn't find diapers, right? So anyway, so I end up finding them. Like I think I ended up having to go get them myself or something, and they're literally called hamburger slices on the jar. And he just is looking at it like, and I'm like, see, hamburger slices, round, thin slices of dill pickle. Like you've literally never heard of this before. You literally don't know what this is. And but now when I think about it, it's like he's almost looking at me like he didn't think I was actually. right? So, like I said, that there was just moments where it was like, this man thinks I'm talking about something I'm not talking about. He thinks I'm speaking in some sort of Fight Club coded language. I mean, it's like living in the fucking Twilight Zone, right? So, no, I wanted medium, I explicate again. Well, mild is the same as medium, right? Two. What? Why would this be the case? This excuse doesn't even make sense, right? If it were, I would have just said mild because I would have known that mild is what's written on the package. Right? So you see what I'm like, so now even if you take it into objective reality, this guy has this problem where he's thinking that I am just saying whatever and then expecting him to fill in the gaps. And it's not what's going on. It's called medium, right? It's not called mild, right? It's like I'm not fucking with you, dude. Okay? This is so bizarre. Right? Why would this even be the case? This excuse doesn't even make sense. Maybe it's taken out of the context of a relationship with someone you know, but at your age, it's high time to stop making excuses when you fuck up and just own up to making a mistake. You can forget. It's allowed, like globally, right? Making mistakes is part and parcel to life. Making excuses like this is petty and immature. Why do you feel a need to justify mistakes with weird excuses? Are you 12? What's worse is that if someone else were in your shoes, you would be calling them dumb. So now I remember too distinctly from the third journal that this came up, that the stupid is stupid, you know what I mean? Right? Like, yes, stupid is stupid. I sent you over there with a list. One of the items on the list was medium pecani sauce. You came home with mild pecani sauce, and it's not the correct thing, but you're acting like you can't understand how you could have possibly made this mistake. It's pretty cut and dry, dude. Right? It's kind of like the jig is up. Your hand is in the cookie jar. Well, guess what? This is a perfect time to use my PISYL, right? Peaceful. Pretend it's someone you love method. So I imagine that it's my brother that has made this mistake. Now, what's interesting about that is that I would believe that he made an honest mistake, but I would point out that it's a strange mistake to make, a teachable moment, if you will, right? So, like with people that you actually care about and actually care about you, and you have that understanding and that unconditional love kind of going on, you can be a little bit more forthright, right? So, what I'm saying here is, I'd be able to tell my brother, like, dude, it's called medium. That's why I wrote it on the list. I'm not trying to fuck with you. I'm not playing games with you with the grocery list. But you could actually say that to somebody, right? You can't say it to this guy, right? Because he's touched in the head. So you have to walk on eggshells, right? On the other hand, my brother probably would have just said, oops, sorry, will you eat it anyway, though? And then the entire problematic conversation just wouldn't even be happening, right? People that are normal just admit the mistake. Like, do I need to go back? Or, like, are you cool with this? Right? Like, you would have a more friendly and cooperative exchange about stuff. It wouldn't be so weirdly combative. I literally buy this stuff in the gallon jug when I buy it for myself. So it used to be that at the Walmart here, because the Sam's Club is literally right above the Walmart. So like the Walmart's one story on the ground floor, and the second floor is the Sam's Club, and there's an escalator that takes you up to it. So some of the bulk item size stuff they just also sell in the Walmart, and this medium pecani sauce was one of those items, and so I would just buy it in the huge jug. And so this was also an item that was in the refrigerator on a regular basis. This wasn't even something that was arcane. Okay, like this is something he's even seen before. I eat this so often, it's like water. If I were eating mild, wouldn't I have asked for mild? Flavor differentiators don't usually have synonyms. If I say I want strawberry ice cream and you bring back cherry, it doesn't make much sense to say you thought it was the same thing. If I say I want beef but you bring me pork, it's not the same thing, is it? This isn't in the realm of things that make sense to say you thought they were the same thing. Spicy is the adjective that needs to be explicated, thus mild, medium, and hot. Since you don't eat spicy food, it makes only tangential sense that you would think these are the same things. Oh, it's all the way around the block on the other side of this. No problem. Since you don't eat spicy food, it makes only tangential sense that you would think these are the same thing. It would make more sense to take it at pure face value when I point out that you brought back the wrong item, not attempt to argue your way into being right. I think you find it painful to admit that you don't know something or that you made a mistake, which all of this leads me to number three. Why in the fuck are you explaining my life to me? Like I said, you don't actually have a personal point of reference for this, do you? You don't eat this type of stuff. So what makes you think that, like, this man thought black pepper was a ghost pepper, okay? Like, he literally could not handle any spice whatsoever, okay? So, like I said, I could have a little bit of compassion for the fact that this is completely outside of his own realm of personal experience, right? But that's why I would be being specific because I know that you don't know better, right? Okay. So, like I said, why in the fuck are you explaining my life to me? Like I said, you don't actually have a personal point of reference for this, do you? You don't eat this type of stuff. So, what makes you think that you can have this particular conversation? It has been obviously implied by now that you brought the wrong thing. I just, no, it goes mild, medium, hot. I explain while making hand gestures that indicate that there is a progression. I wasn't rude or mean about it, just stated a fact of life to you. This is when things got really weird. You stopped and cocked your head while staring into space for a second, like you were thinking really hard about this. Like, hello, like small, medium, large, left, middle, right, Hawaii, Oahu, Maui. This type of relation between things doesn't compute. What the actual fuck is going on right now? Red, yellow, green. Stop, slow, go. Why doesn't this jive? Like he's literally scared. This is actually kind of funny. So the same friend that I mentioned before, the same coworker that ended up going through the compassionate strife right after I left. Um, he one day, so at the Safeway, they would sell things like bicycles and kind of bigger toys and stuff near Christmas. And so they had this row of these like little like huffy bikes. And he was standing there looking at them one day. The two of us are working in this the kiosk, which is like right adjacent to this. And he's standing there looking at the price tag sign with his head cocked in this way. It was a thing that he would do when he was thinking really hard about something. He'd cock his head to his side and he would kind of like squint his eyes at it and his mouth would be open, like, you know the look, right? And all of a sudden, like I think like I was the one making drinks and taking the orders, and my coworker was like washing dishes. And so when she turned around to put something away and saw him standing there like that, she just bust out laughing. And I turned to her like, "What happened? What's so funny?" And she comes over to me and like whispers, she's like, "Why is he staring at the bikes like that?" It's hilarious even to this day. I can see it so clearly in my mind. And she was laughing so hard that she almost couldn't breathe. Like she had to like take a break and like she had to go calm down. But like, oh my goodness. I mean, the gif, the meme with the woman and like all the equations like going across the screen, and that's the look. Like over like trying to figure out the price of these bikes. I don't even know. I think it was something like the bikes were like 99.99, but the club member price was like 79.99. And I think he couldn't figure out what club member price was, because this will come up too. Like he couldn't quite understand sometimes how the Safeway like rewards program worked, and so he didn't know what the hell was going on. So, but anyway, I digress. But this is kind of a common occurrence. He would kind of glitch out a little bit like this when he couldn't wrap his head around something. Okay, you finally mutter. You are genuinely acting like this concept has broken your brain. Then you ask if it's all right, and I know that you would be willing to take it back to the store to swap it out if I say it isn't. I say that it's all right, even though I know that mild just tastes like diced onions swimming in stewed tomatoes, but maybe I should have been honest. But anyway, that way you would have personal experience with the fact that I'm telling the truth. But I just really find it hard to believe that someone is as dumb as you are without having any idea about it at the same time. Right? Like, how do you not realize, though, that this is something that's not, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's like that I'm literally telling you that there's three different spice levels of this item, right? Mild, medium, and hot. It's just that simple. It's not that complicated. But for some reason, he's acting like I just asked him to negotiate world peace. Like, it is what it is. At this point, I think it's time for me to at least render an apparent diagnosis. As this memoir continues, I'm going to get into some really dark, really weird theories, but for now, I think that it works to just state what things appear to be on a real level. You have both an intellectual disability and narcissistic personality disorder. Information that indicates that you are stupid just doesn't make it past the narcissistic wall. One of the indicators of this is how quickly you apply the term stupid to any and everything that isn't perfect. This overgeneralized misapplication of the word seems to indicate that you don't know what it means. To you, it's just a label you put on anything that causes a problem or is simply a mistake or accident. Your use of it when it comes to characters in fictional scenarios on television and in movies is not only astonishing, but downright absolutely irritating. I dread watching anything with you because inevitably, when you return to the show after 10 minutes of smoking in the bathroom, you will start to call characters stupid or certain plot lines dumb because you miss the rationale behind what's happening and what people are doing. Often, you straight up miss the first 10 minutes and therefore literally don't even know what's going on. You have personal empirical evidence and therefore the ability to understand that that is the case. But for some reason, you deem yourself a worthy judge of something you know literally nothing about. You also seem to have problems with what's called being an omniscient observer, which is to say that you attribute the global knowledge that you have while watching a program to every character in that program, despite the fact that the plot usually depends on someone not knowing something. I have mentioned before during one of these episodes that if things went the way you insisted, then there would be no show. There would be no interesting plot to watch, or a feature length film would be over in 15 minutes. In short, it's an embarrassing misunderstanding of how fictional entertainment functions. I think of when people say that, like, why didn't Ariel just write down on a sheet of paper that she lost her voice because she got tricked into trading it to a sea witch, right? And just hand it to Air. Like, why did they play charades the whole time, right? So that's it's like that. The story has to be gerrymandered in a way that it elicits a conflict and that there's some kind of plot. There has to be something going on. If everything was resolved as quickly as he thought it should have been, there wouldn't have been anything to be doing. It's equally amazing how often you embarrass yourself in front of people in public because of the opposite, attributing a fundamental lack of ability of knowledge with which to navigate the world for oneself without your help. For example, when your suggestion has already been implemented, telling me what to say to a salesperson when I have already done so, or that your anecdotal tale is irreconcilably strangely self-centered. The ketchup went on sale after you bought it. This may be funny to friends and neighbors, but not to the person working in the grocery store. So, I don't want to lose my place here, but this, so my charger like went to crap and I had to buy a new charger. And so I had gone over to the T-Mobile store. There was like the grocery store had its own weird little strip mall kind of situation going on, and there was a T-Mobile over there, which is where I had gotten my phone. So I went over there to get a high-speed charger, but they were sold out the day I went. So like a week later, when I went back to get it, he went with me because we were going to just go grocery shopping. So we're in there talking to the guy, and um, we ended because the only high speed charger they ended up having was like the kind that came with the car kit also and stuff. And so I was talking to him about like kind of asking like if I bought this today, can I like exchange it a week from now after this kind of stuff, right? And in the middle of our conversation, he just turns and looks at me and he says, "Tell him that you're here to buy a charger." And just with a very not like not in any kind of rude or like weird sort of or any kind of way. He just turned and was like, just tell him that you're here for a charger. Like I don't know how to fucking shop. And the guy, because the people who work at the T-Mobile came up to get Starbucks all the time. So like we actually have a rapport. We see each other every day, right? When he comes for their coffee. So he just looks at me like he doesn't know what to do, right? He's just like, what the heck was that? Like the look on his face was just like, is he kidding? Like, and I'm just looking at him like, no, right? And then it's like, because sometimes it's like he has this way of being able to come across as though he's not like mentally ill or like stuff like kind of experiencing these sorts of challenges. And so every once in a while, people would finally see the glimmer, and then they would understand why he needed someone like me around because he can't actually navigate the world on his own very well. But anyway, that was just weird. And then the ketchup thing was, I know there was a better ketchup story than this, but and this actually happened, right? So like the Safeway sales roll over on Wednesdays, but it was like on Tuesday he went over and bought a new bottle of ketchup, and then on Wednesday it went on sale. And I think like we were just checking out at the store and he just randomly mentions this, so completely out with like no context or anything, right? It's just this thing that he blurted out to the cashier as she's ringing us up, right? So it's just like it's just weird because like yeah, of course, like the ketchup went on sale after I bought it, and she's just thinking like is he actually directing that at me, or like, is he just randomly saying this, and it's like no, he's just randomly saying that. I no, no. You seem to have absolutely no idea it's occurring, even when people are almost rolling their eyes right in your face. It's meta stupidity. You actually lack the recognition of when you've done something dumb yourself, and it causes you to repeatedly reveal your stupidity on a regular basis. It borders on delusional psychosis. Right, but it's like that. How is he not? He's not picking up the cues. So, like I said, I'm not trying to roast neurodivergent people here. Like, I get it. I understand. Maybe he was on the spectrum. I don't think he was. I think his problem was actually narcissism. He's so full of himself. His brain does not allow him to even think of himself in those terms, right? And so think of it like this, right? If you say something that's actually really smart, but it goes over the head of the person that you're talking to, and they're giving you the look, right? Like I said, the lady who's looking confused with the equations going across the screen, right? But it makes sense because that math looks hard, right? So it's like, okay, that might confuse somebody. But the opposite is also kind of true, right? If you say something that's so incredibly dumb that the person is looking at you like, huh? It's the same sort of reaction. It's the same sort of look, right? And so what's happening is he's saying and doing these things that are actually incredibly dumb, but his brain is always misinterpreting that he's gobsmacking people. He leaves people flabbergasted and awestruck in his wake, right? That's the way his brain is interpreting those looks. So, case in point, the pilot episode of the Netflix Lost in Space reboot. Spoiler alert. Okay, well, as you know, it's been long enough, right? So, Judy was trapped in the ice after diving down into the Jupiter to retrieve something after it broke through a glacial shelf and sank into a pool of water. As she was swimming to the surface, the cold finally caught up to her, and the water began to freeze faster than she could swim. She was frozen completely in a solid pool of ice. When they began to melt her free, they were able to uncover her hand, but the ice was freezing faster than they could cut below about a foot into the ice. You began shouting repeatedly that they should grab her hand. They are so stupid, dumb, stupid broad. Grab her hand, stupid, blah, 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 blah. I finally had enough and said, she's entirely frozen in the ice. Grabbing her hand won't do anything. To be perfectly clear, she wouldn't have fit through the hole they had made either anyway, so grabbing her hand was obviously physically completely fucking pointless. This behavior that you perceive to be painfully obvious was actually obviously useless that to someone that understood what was happening. Right, so like if you were keeping up with or like and actually accurately tracking what was going on in the show, you would know that that's exactly what the problem is that they're only able to like get her hand exposed, but they can't keep up with how fast the ice is freezing. And now she's just trapped in the ice and she's dead, right? And that's all there is to it. And she's not stupid. She was attempting to be the hero, or whatever. Like shit happens and people have to actually do stuff. This is an absurdly frequently occurring behavior. If I pointed out every time you embarrassed yourself, you wouldn't learn from it. You would hate me, absolutely hate me, right? Because of this flip, right? And it's like if I pointed out every time you were actually being dumb, you would take it as me just being a grumpy bitch who needed to shut up and leave you alone, right? So how am I, there's no way around this, right? If you have someone who psychologically just stonewalls anyone who tries to give you constructive criticism, that's where the buck stops. This shut you up, thank fucking God, but this behavior alone is stunningly ridiculous. One outburst, maybe, if you had genuinely missed that it wasn't just a layer of ice on the top that she could break through with assistance. But to go on, and on, and on, and on, like a broken goddamn record without simply letting the show progress is alarming. Like, literally psychotic. It really worries me because your behavior puts me on eggshells. You're like a ticking time bomb. One move from me that you misinterpret as dumb because you can no longer accurately track reality will set off an awkward, explosive chain reaction that could ruin life for the both of us. You were close to this 2 years ago when I first moved in, and you angrily insisted that I take a menial job so that I had an apparent source of income to fool the housing people, when anyone paying that close of attention wouldn't still be able to tell what's going on. He literally got in my face and screamed, like nose to nose and screamed, like fucking Vince McMahon firing someone on WWE, and screamed at me to get a job at Safeway across the street. It's the only reason I ever went over and started working there, and then spent most of the money that I was making there just keeping us afloat in his apartment because he was so bad with money. My personal business is legally registered in the state of Hawaii. I have a license and a tax ID number. It made no sense that I needed to have a public facing job, but it shut you up, so I dealt with it. It was the first and last time you have ever barked an order at me. Maybe the NPD has caused your apparent intellectual disability as well as your immaturity. It's like you're stuck in the invincible know it all teenager stage. Perhaps at some point your inability to accept that you don't know everything, aren't perfect, and make mistakes actually prevented you from developing past a certain point intellectually. Sometimes I wonder if you dropped out of high school as a result of this commingling of mental attributes. There are some trivial things that I am dumbfounded that you don't know. I can't remember any specific examples off the top of my head right now as I write this, but I'll be on the lookout for them in the future. So yeah, so just say like that this bullheadedness and this inability to take constructive criticism would have prevented him from being able to learn past a certain point. Because if he can't just figure it out for himself, it must just be dumb, and he just move on from it. Okay. Hold the fucking phone. What the hell was that just now? I'm sitting here watching YouTube, eating my PB&J. He had been in the shower for almost 45 minutes, but at one point he came out to grab the pan and broom, which he does whenever he cuts his hair. Fast forward, I can see his reflection in my laptop screen, and I hear him mumble something through my headphones. I remove the headphones as he comes up behind me. He grabs the lotion on the table beside me and asks me if I'm using it. Now, for the sake of a reader's spatial orientation, I use a card table in the corner of the room as my desk with a TV stand and a folding tray table beside me. On the TV stand, there is an analog clock that he uses. His futon is behind me, and then, oh hell, I'm just going to have to include a floor plan. See Appendix A, LOL. Back to the story. He comes up behind me. As I said, I removed my headphones because I heard him, but I don't know what he said. This is another bad habit that one would think a person hard of hearing would be able to get over, expecting me to be able to hear him when he can see that I have my headphones in, especially when he can see that I'm watching something on my laptop. It's obviously perfectly relatable. Anyway, he picks up the bottle of lotion beside me that usually lives on the bathroom sink. He thought it was soap at one point. Eureka! There's an example of something I'm dumbfounded by about his lack of intelligence that makes me wonder about his education or life experience. But first things first. Actually, that does play into the story, though. He picks up the bottle of lotion and asks if I'm using it. I say yes, but then he asks if I'm using it right then. I'm not, of course, but I'm completely confused at what this has to do with anything in life. He then states that he's going to put it back in the bathroom. Now I'm really confused because the only thing I can figure is that he's still convinced that this giant 1 liter bottle of rose scented body butter is hand soap. I asked him why he wants to take it back to the bathroom. He says, because I can't see the clock. Thud. Really? Then just ask me to move it. Or better yet, while you're standing there fucking around with my lotion, just look at the clock. I remember this now. So when he walked out of the bathroom and wanted to just peek around the corner to see the clock, he couldn't see it through my bottle of lotion. So he walked all the way in the room to ask about putting the bottle of lotion back into the bathroom instead of just walking into the room to look at the clock. Right? He had this unnerving need to just pester and fuck with me. Right, you remember the scene in Hustle and Flow when she keeps messing with the baby and he's like, you got to stop doing that because you're going to give him a tick or you're going to give him a complex. Like, that's what this guy was doing to me. It's like every time I turn around, he just has to be dicking with something and bothering me, right? He just has to be underfoot or in my face. And it's so strange. So it seems as though when he's around other people, he can't help but indulge himself in their attention. It's like there's some demon using him as a conduit to fuck with my brain. That's why I don't even know what I mean by that, but it's like, yeah, it's like there's some demon using him as a conduit to fuck. Like, so it's like he's not actually deaf and it's not a hearing aid. It's some comm device and someone's telling him to do shit that irritates me. I mean, it's just absurd. So that's why I'm keeping this journal and we'll publish it as a book. It's not because I want to roast some poor old dude. It's because people deserve to get a fresh novelesque peek at what mental illness is really like. I took the lotion from his hands and put it elsewhere on my table. We had a brief conversation about what to have for dinner. He sat down at his desk to make a list, then turned to me and said, "Oh, I cut my hair," in a tone that indicated that he believed this mattered to me. I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose anyone officially or prescribe medication or direct someone to go to therapy. I do, however, have a bachelor's degree in psychology and have worked with special populations, aka people with developmental disabilities. This journal is part of my own therapy as I now have a game plan for the next year that will allow me to move on. As of this writing, I have lived with this man for over 2 years. I have a solid handle on which behaviors are consistent, which incidents are unique, what positive and negative symptoms of mental illness he exhibits, and hopefully how to keep him at bay for one more year. I moved out on March 5th of 2021. I ended up living there for another 3 years. At the point that I was writing this, I wasn't even halfway out of this fucking situation. And I literally had no fucking idea. I really thought that I had allegedly been hired at Macy's for this temporary shit. Like I had a new job, like everything. And I was like, I'm going to get out of here. And I think I've already gone over all of the Macy's stuff, right? Yeah. Um, you can't make this stuff up unless you are whatever powers that be that I really feel did this to me on purpose. This was all some contrived shit. And however they did it by convincing him that we were actually like, I don't know if it was like Facebook friends or if there was somewhere else online where people thought it was me and they were using that to get people to actually fuck with me in real life. I don't know. But at this point, I am pretty much solidly convinced that somebody put him up to it. And it was not just some accident that we met. This was not, I mean, just the fact that somebody with a background in psychology and working with special populations and people with behavioral, developmental, and intellectual disabilities would end up in a situation like this. It's uncanny, right? I mean, sometimes I ask them, I'm like, am I crazy for thinking that? But I don't think I am. I feel like that feels a little, you know, it feels a little on the nose. So, with all that being said, that concludes the journal entry for, what was this, August 15th of 2018. Yeah, that was a long one. It wasn't as long as I originally thought it was, but it was a long one. But now I can catch up and be back on pace to have everything in the order that I had originally intended it to be. So, until next time, bye!